All right, so if you tune into the first video, this is going to be part 2 of conversions. Now we're converting between standard and metric systems. So the biggest difference is going to be when we go between different systems or units, right? Now we're not using those base units anymore. So if I go from pounds to ounces, that's going to be converting between 2 different units because pounds and ounces aren't interchangeable. It's pounds and then it's ounces. Say if we go from miles to kilometers, again, that's not interchangeable. Those are 2 different units. So that's what I want you guys to understand. You got to create those triggers. You have to know when you have to convert within a particular system, so you know to do your left to right, your King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, or when you're going between different systems, then you know how to do your setup. So again, this is all with practice. This is all with training yourself to know that when you see certain things, you create those triggers. And if you guys know what triggers are, basically when I say a trigger, that means that if you get to a certain problem, right, it should automatically click in your mind how to set it up, because you don't want to find yourself doing your test going back and forth as to how to solve something, because what that does is it frustrates you, it increases your anxiety, and it puts you in a boat to where you're more likely to make a mistake. So if you train yourself as you're studying to know that when I see 20 milligrams equals how many grams, I automatically know King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, move my decimal over, solve, execute, move on to my next problem. That's the way you want to train yourself. You want to be able to do. I'm not saying that you have to do it at lightning bolt speed. I'm not saying that you have to be faster than the next person, but we have to remember that we're being timed, right? And then you guys have 36 questions to complete in 50. Ouch. You guys have 36 questions to complete in 54 minutes. So we also want to be mindful of that. If you're tuning in now, make sure if you haven't seen the previous videos, this is going to be our last topic in our first cluster. So the first cluster covered estimating and rounding rules and real world situations. Our second video covered converting between fractions, decimals, and percents, which is really those 2 are very, very important sub skills. Our third video covered comparing and ordering rational numbers, and then of course our fourth and fifth video today are going to talk about conversions within a unit and between a unit as well. So make sure you guys are keeping up, asking those questions. If you haven't, oh, I talk so horribly, guys. I'm so sorry. If you haven't had a chance to check out the diagnostic and take it, please go take it, because that's going to give you a really, really good post as to where you are. What I did was I broke all the questions down in terms of the topics and give you a checklist at the end, so you'll know based on the questions you missed which topics you need to spend the most time focusing on. Now, of course, I always recommend that you review everything. Even if you feel like you're really good at a particular topic, you always still want to review it, because you never know what mistakes you might be making or if you can make yourself a little better at it. And of course, as we're doing this, make sure you guys are dropping questions, comments, concerns, anything that you guys are having a really tough time with, and we'll go from there. All right, so one thing that I see that people have a tough time with all the time is that they say, oh, I can't remember all of the conversions. Well, for this particular test, though, they're not expecting you guys to memorize all the conversions, especially between units. Now, I will say that they do expect for you guys to know common conversions. So when we say common meaning that almost everybody memorized them, is not something that's super difficult. And when I say something simple like inches to feet, I mean, we all know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So of course, naturally, they're gonna expect for you to know how to convert between feet and inches. Also, to piggyback off that, they expect for you to know they're 3 feet in 1 yard. So you should know without a key how to convert between inches, feet, and yards. Now, I do know that for a fact they're not gonna give you the conversion for that particular one. Another common one, when we talk about math, like ounces and pounds, like they expect you to know it's 16 ounces in a pound. But they're not going to expect you to know how many kilometers there are in a mile. They're not going to expect for you to know, I don't think you would even have to know that how many pounds are in a ton. Like certain things they're going to give you a particular key to. And that's where people tend to kind of go left, because they're trying so hard to memorize so many different conversions that the array of conversions that they can give you is so wide. This test does not have that level of difficulty for you to have to memorize so much. And I'll show you guys an example of what a problem would look like so that you would know. And please bypass my handwriting because it's horrible. All right, so for example, they say, okay, 25 yards is equal to how many meters? So again, we notice that yards and meters are 2 completely different types of units. So when you see this, your trigger is, okay, this is a conversion between 2 different units. You should not be using the acronym King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, because this does not apply to that, okay? So you want to focus on your units so that you guys know I'm converting between two particularly different things, okay? All right, so normally if you have a conversion, right, they'll give you a key in parentheses. A lot of you guys should have seen this in doing practice problems in various books of sorts, that they'll give you a key. So this says that 1 yard is equivalent to 0.915 meters. That's not a common conversion, so a normal person isn't going to know that. And this test does not gauge that level of difficulty to where they're going to expect you to know this. Now, when I say common, like inches, feet, and yards, that's very common. Ounces and pounds, that's very common. But when we get down to decimals and things of this nature, they're going to provide you with the key for this. So when we do conversions, I always tell people, this comes down to a matter of multiplying and dividing. Either you're going to multiply these two numbers together. Of course, we're not worried about the one. Or you're going to divide them. The problem is that people will guess. So people will say, oh, well, I'm going to just multiply them together. Or if I'm going from this unit to a bigger unit to a smaller unit, I'm going to divide them more. However you see fit. The problem is that people don't take the time to do the setup to confirm whether you multiply or divide. So this, of course, I always say is a given, meaning that it's so easy to solve, and they provide you guys with a calculator that you shouldn't miss it. So don't be lazy and make a misstep, and I'll show you guys exactly how to be able to set it up so we can do our conversion, okay? All right, so you're always going to start out with the unit that they give you. That's going to be your first value. You're always going to place that on your left-hand side, okay? And you do want to include your units because you don't want to make a mistake, right? All right, so let's see. And I'll show you guys exactly how I set it up so you guys will know. All right, so first things first. The value that we're converting, which is what we started out with, our 25 yards, you're always going to write that first, okay? That's always going to stand on its own because that's converting from one unit to another, okay? The conversion factor that they give us, we're always going to write it as a ratio. A ratio is just a fraction. Now, depending on where your units are, that's how you're going to decide what goes on the top and what goes on the bottom. Because some people say, oh, well, 1 yard came first, so why isn't the one on the top? This is what you guys want to zoom in on. You want to zoom in on your units because if we're converting from one unit to another, that means the unit that I started with, it has to cancel out. So if I started with yards, that means that yards has to be on the bottom, okay? Because that is our goal. Our goal is for it to be able to cancel out so I can convert it. Because when those cancel out, oh, that should have an S on there, sorry. I'm left with meters, and the goal is to go from yards to meters, right? All right, now from this setup, the only thing you're looking for is levels. Levels, right? So we're going to negate the one. The one I always tell people that's like a placeholder, you just automatically want to cross it out. 25 and 0.915 are on the same level, meaning that if I made this a fraction, I put it over a 1, right? These two are both on top. Same level means you're going to multiply them together. And it's that simple. Sometimes the concept is so easy that people will tend to make it 10 times harder than what it is. And I don't know why. I just know that if you practice enough, it'll put you in a space to where you understand that. If they're both on top or they both on the bottom, and of course it'll never be bottom because it's always going to be on top, then I multiply. If one's on top and one's on the bottom, not number one, but you get what I'm saying, then I'm going to divide. So of course here, if I do 25 times 0.915, that's going to give me 22.875 meters. Okay, so again, that's always going to come in the setup. So if you missed it, we're always going to start with whatever unit we're converting. So I started with 25 yards, okay? This conversion factor that they gave us is going to be written as a ratio. Now, your units are going to determine what goes on top and what goes on the bottom. If I know that I'm trying to cancel the yards out, I know that yards has to go on the bottom. So, of course, that's going to be our 1 yard in this case, which means that the 0.915 meters has to go on top. The reason why the units have to be diagonal from each other is because I want them to cancel out. I want you to visually be able to see that I'm going from one thing to another because that only leaves me with meters, which is our goal, of course. And of course, they're both on top. If they're both on the same level, I multiply, and that's how I got 22.875. All right. So I'll show you guys the opposite scenario when they are on different levels. So visually, you guys can kind of see the difference. And then we'll go from there. Okay, and of course, if anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to drop them, even if you drop it after the live video, just to let me know where you guys are. All right, so this question says 128 centimeters is equal to how many inches? And of course, they give us our key. 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. Okay, so remember I told you guys the very first step is we always want to write what they give us, what's being converted. I'm going to write that here, and then we're going to write the conversion factor as a ratio in order to be able to do the conversion. So let's see how we come out. So I'm going to start out with 128 centimeters. So if I know that centimeters is what I start with, that means that in my conversion, the centimeters has to be on the bottom. I'll probably shoot a different color here so you guys can see. All right, so again, when we do our setup, we always start out with whatever we're converting, which is our 128 centimeters. So because centimeters is on top, and that's what I want to cancel out, centimeters has to go on the bottom. Because remember, we're converting from one unit to another. You have to make sure you memorize that. So because the centimeters went on the bottom, they gave me 2.54 centimeters. So if you guys notice the difference is now they're on different levels. Now I have one number on top, one number on the bottom, because we're always going to negate the one holds no value in the situation. So now if they're on different levels, that means I'm going to divide, because I have a number located on top. And when I say on top, if I made this a fraction and put it over 1, it would be on top. So I'm doing 128 divided by 2.54, which gives me 50.39 inches. 50 and 3900 inches. Okay? And that's pretty much it. So in this given scenario, you're either going to multiply or divide. Very simple when converting between different units. But the setup is definitely going to aid you, because the setup is going to let you know whether you multiply or divide. Please don't get in there and you want to guess and you just want to hope that you're doing it right, because in your answer choices, they're going to have both answers. They're going to have the answer for if you multiply, and they're also going to have the answer whether you divide, and I don't want you guys to miss it just because you didn't understand how to do the setup. So at this particular point, we have just completed cluster number 1. If you guys missed it again, the topics for this particular test are broken down into 5 clusters in order for you guys to be able to relate them based on how they executed. It's really easier if I group them together, because then it kind of gives you a guide as to how to study. So basically at this point, we've reviewed, even I already said it. Applying estimation strategies around the rules to real world problems, converting non-negative fractions, decimals, and percents, comparing and ordering rational numbers, and converting within and between standard and metric systems. So at this point, there are 4 topics that we've covered out of the 15. At this particular point, if you're having trouble with any of those, of course, I definitely would recommend that you guys go back and watch the videos. And if anything that I said is confusing, or if it's still leaving you kind of in the blind, make sure you go ahead and comment so I can go ahead and clarify as well. Remember, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to increase the engagement on this page so that we're always getting notifications, we're always in the loop, we're always studying, we're always getting the aid that we need. If you haven't done so far, please make sure you guys go to Walmart and grab the 4-function calculator, because I want you guys to put yourself in the space to practice just like it's the real test. So I would like for you guys to have the right tools so you are familiar with the buttons and how to utilize everything, so it's not like a blur. Because believe it or not, some people have a hard time using a particular calculator just because they don't remember to clear everything out after every problem, or not understanding where the radical sign is. Just a lot of small stuff that I would love for you guys to be able to get correct on the test. Now, if we delve a little deeper in terms of everything that we have done so far, at this point, based on the videos that I've shown you guys, you should know how to, long list, you should know how to round whole numbers and decimals, you should know how to simplify a radical, you should know how to choose an appropriate tool of measure. You should know how to estimate the mass, length, and width of everyday objects. You should know how to convert fractions to decimals, fractions to percentages. You should also know how to convert decimals to percentages, decimals to fractions, as well as converting percentages to fractions and percentages to decimals. You should also know how to compare rational values. You should know how to identify the largest value in the data set. You should also know how to identify the smallest value in the data set. You should know how to place rational numbers in ascending order, which is from least to greatest, and understand the difference between ascending and descending. You should know how to put them in descending order, which is greatest to least. You should also know how to convert within standard and metric systems. So when we say within, that's going to be our acronym. King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And you should also know how to convert between standard and metric systems, such as going from inches to feet, or pounds to ounces, or miles to kilometers. So of course that was like how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that was 17 different things that you should know how to do at this particular point. So every video that I do, it goes in conjunction with the book. The way that it's broken down. If you guys would like to purchase, definitely make sure you guys inbox me. It's a really great book. I'm not just saying that just because I wrote it. I wrote it because it was a need for it in the market, and I know for a fact, just from me buying the books that are available, that a lot of them still leave you in the boat to where you have questions, you don't have the correct resources, and this gives you everything in one. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. If you know anybody who is struggling with the TEAS portion of the math, make sure you guys invite them to the group. If you haven't done so, go through all the videos, take notes, make sure you guys are practicing. If you haven't had time to go over and take the diagnostic test, it's pinned to the top of the announcements, as well as all of the videos. Make sure you guys go back and handle that for me. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. And tomorrow we will be moving into cluster 2, where we will be covering what? I remember. Oh, ratios and rate of changes. So cluster 2 is going to deal with ratios, proportion, and percentages, which are definitely all interchangeable. And then we'll kind of just go from there. So bear with me as we try to get through all 15 videos, because there's so much stuff that we need to cover. But I'm here to answer as many questions as I can. So 1 cluster down, 4 clusters to go, 7, 9, 11 more topics to cover. All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same place, maybe a different time, not sure. And just thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.